mean, we got every city and county wants to layer on. They want to, pot for potholes.
And that's why we don't want pot for potholes.
For me, marijuana legalization is a social justice issue. It's a racial justice issue. It's an economic justice issue. And I think the war on drugs has been an abject failure. And I hope folks read their history and understand what's happened in the last 40 years during that period of time where we were incarcerating disproportionately African Americans and Latinos, where we wasted billions and billions, tens, hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, destroyed lives, destroyed communities. And I hope millennials never allow us to go back. I'm not pro-marijuana, I'm anti-prohibition. And back to California as a cause and a movement, for me this was bigger than California. I think the war on marijuana is all but over. I think the war on drugs cannot be sustained without a war on marijuana. And for me, that's a social justice issue. It's a criminal justice issue. It's a racial justice issue. So I get righteous about this. I think it's a big damn deal.
Nothing of the taxes Governor Newsom could use.
Well, now there's that too. But I don't want to make this California's next gold rush. This, again, was a social justice issue. Let's regulate it. Let's tax it for adult use. Let's not condone its use by kids.
Gavin Newsom, Prop 64 proponent, makes his case for legalizing pot.
But this, I believe, will be a game changer in terms of cartel activity in and out of the state, and will impact the national debate on cannabis. This is not just about California. By the way, it's my state, my positions. I'm anti-marijuana. I'm also vehemently anti-prohibition. You do not have to be pro-marijuana to be pro-legalization. Quite the contrary. And the difference is, we're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars to message that point of view. And there's no resources to message that point of view today. We began our work by saying the following: we don't believe this should be California's next gold rush, that this is not about generating revenue for revenue's sake, that the idea that somehow this is going to plug your budget deficits is laughable on the substance and merits because of the size and scope of California's budget, but also that's not what we should be doing. Also, that's not what we should be doing with a drug that is of concern, particularly for our children and youth, and as it relates to public safety. We shouldn't be promoting it as a government entity per se, particularly for revenue generation.
What about the possibility of taxes getting too high? I mean, we got every city and county wants to layer on. They want to, pot for potholes.
And that's why we don't want pot for potholes. That's why I began the conversation. We began our report saying this is not about California's next gold rush. If this is about local government plugging their gaps, we think that's a mistake. And by the way, personally, I will happily engage and participate in that public discourse of opposition if that's the intent. If this is about generating money to solve all your problems, count me out. To the extent there is taxation, that money we believe should go in certain categories, certain areas that are traditionally underfunded, particularly drug and alcohol treatment programs, mental health, behavioral health programs, preschool, after-school programs focusing on children and youth, public safety.
We're very proud to have an enormous number of legendary supporters, but one in particular that was a standout that was supportive was John Legend. And he is, again, with a frame not in celebrating the use or abuse of the drug, but really looking at the issue from a social justice and criminal justice reform perspective. And John Legend has done as much or more than anybody in recent memory to really be a leader there. And we're at a hinge moment in the history of the drug war.
Core approaches. Focus on the public interest. Reduce the illicit market. Provide protection of legal market for responsible actors. Capture revenue for public purposes. Policy options. Industry structure. Regulate cultivation. Regulation of sales. Level and type of tax. Enforcement. Data collection. Investment of revenue. Goals. Youth, limit access, provide education and treatment. Public safety, on roads, communities. Equity, address racial and economic disparities. Public health, limit heavy use and strengthen treatment. Environment, protect water, habitat, and wildlife. Medicine, ensure patient access. Consumer protection, product safety. Workforce, safeguard workers. Market access, level playing field for small and mid-sized actors to enter legal market.
Taxing marijuana. The ability to tax cannabis is one of the main political reasons given to support recreational legalization. A successful tax system will need to raise money to pay for increased education, public health and enforcement costs associated with marijuana cultivation and use. However, this commission feels strongly that maximizing tax revenue should not be the focus of cannabis tax policy. This commission feels strongly that maximizing tax revenue should not be the focus of cannabis tax policy. Protecting youth and ensuring safe, healthy communities must be the guiding principles of any cannabis regulation, even if that means failing to maximize the potential for cannabis as a source of tax revenue. While promising to fund other government programs with cannabis taxes may be a popular selling point for legalization proponents, we do not believe that making government dependent on cannabis taxes makes for sound public policy. Tax dependence can produce an alliance between government and corporations committed to maximizing sales and revenue. Regulators and decision makers should consider how to set up a tax scheme that will help them achieve the core goals of legalization policy that have been stated earlier in this report. Tax and regulatory compliance should be simple to execute and formulated in a way that makes compliance desirable to market participants.